Yimir Hashem. Okay, I'll just introduce the Rav and Yimir Hashem will begin. So, Baruch Haba to everybody. It's a tremendous kavod. It's a really big honor for us to have Dayan Raskin with us. I believe the Rav, the Dayan, does not need any introduction. Everybody's familiar with Dayan Raskin Shlita. He's the Rav of a nation in London. Mechaber many Choshev Sfarim that came out every single Lubavitcher home has, Baruch Hashem. Just most recently, the Alter Rebbe Siddur, 3 Chalakim. I say from Minhagim, three Svardim of Chuvas and Allah Lamaisa. It could be I'm missing some others as well. Please forgive me. Baruch Hashem. And
The Kitzur Shulchan is the
the
most
Kitzur Shulchan
between
with
everyone's
the
heart.
Alter Rebbe's Piskei. That's right. That's right. Thank you. So it's we thank the Rav very much for joining us. This is a very important topic and has to be done correctly. And this is why we have Dayan Raskin with us to help us guide us how to do it. Halach Lamaisa. B'kavod Gadol. Without further ado, Dayan Raskin Shlita.
Thank you for the introduction. And what you see on the screen is this. I gave a shiur on this at a rabbinic conference in Vienna. So that's 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And it's because of my belief that the Mechiras Chometz should be done locally by local rabbonim. If you are able to be a Masada Kedushin and you're able to do, I'm not talking about Chas v'Shalom and Am Haaretz, but it's not a huge thing to undertake. You learn through the Inyonim properly. And I think it's something which is reachable for, Anoshim Kerekeinu, to be Masada Mechiras Chometz. You have in the Rishimis of the Rebbe Tzimchana, which was published a few years ago, you have her describing the scene, the tension at home when her husband Reb Levi was being Masader the Mechiras Chometz, and it is absolutely it's very great achrayas to make sure you get it right. And so, and then the relief of the moment when you finish the Mechira Ka'alocha and you say, and now the Chometz is all yours, and Yodi Meseloche Seimenu have nothing to do with the Chometz. That's a kind of moment of relief. You've sold the Chometz. So it's something special. Now, one other point is that the Alter Rebbe, I'm going to go a little bit in the history, not too much, but the Alter Rebbe is the one who introduced the Or of Kabbalah. Now, here's something which is, I think, I'm learning actually now, this Siman, and I think anyone who's going to do Mechiras Chometz, contemplating, learn through Siman Tov Memches in Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch. There are other places where you can read up also. So, I mean, possibly Rebbe Levin's writings about it. There was once a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch with a Hisofis called Yeshua's Chochmah. At the back of that Yeshua's Chochmah, there's also a detailed study guidance for Mechiras Chometz. But what is a Chiddush of the Alter Rebbe is the concept of Or of Kabbalah. Now, the Alter Rebbe had many takonos, but I don't know whether any of those takonos became part of the Shulchan Aruch. For example, we have our Kesher, which is the Alter Rebbe's design for the Kesher Shel Yad is to be Yotzei Shittas Rabbeinu Tam and Shittas Atoy and Rabbi Yami Lundrish B'chol Yoyim, to be Chaysha B'chol Yoyim. There's no mention of that in the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch. Various other takonos of the Alter Rebbe, when he compiles the Shulchan Aruch, it's still b'chayav of the Rebbe of the Mizritcha Magid. Rabbi Yoshua Yeshechav V'Shesheves Tach Kamoini by the Mizritcha Magid. And the Alter Rebbe is more malakit. I know you have hand about, but the Alter Rebbe's style is, and the Rebbe mentions many times, Koloshen HaPoskim Shekotmuhu. In his genius way, he words it, but Bichlolus, the Alter Rebbe is Maitik Dvorim Shekotmuhu. Here, the Or of Kabbalah is the Chiddush of the Alter Rebbe. And to that should become part of the Shulchan Aruch. I think this is a unique in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. The second thing is, I'm putting here on the screen, Ach kol ish yireh Hashem yiras Hashem noga belibe should do a chesham mechira kenusach hakosav b'siddur. So the understanding is that there's a siddur, which the Alter Rebbe, which siddur is he talking about? Siddur Chachayim? Which siddur is he talking about? That Mr. His own siddur, yeah? But it's not there in the siddur. And if until 20 years ago you could say, the erste Druck doesn't give in. Really? Go and take the Alter Rebbe's siddur, which was found in 10 years ago, whatever, in the Ois of Hasvarim in Moscow, and it's the Eberstels the help from Raskin von Dorten. There's no Mechiras Chometz there. So what's this Kenusach HaKosav b'Siddur? The Siddur is printed, was published by the Alter Rebbe in Tovkuf Samach Gimel. And it's not there. But Mechiras Chometz is not there. When did he write this? When did he write this? Al Zeir Modner. I know this is not the Negela Meise. I'm just saying this the Chavivusa de Milsa. Selects up that at a particular time, I'm in the middle of giving a share. I'll call you back, yeah? Select Sach that the Alter Rebbe, this Inyan of Orav Kablin comes in at a later stage. And whereas the Shulchan Aruch Bechlolus was written earlier on in the late Tovkuf Lamed, or the early Tovkuf Lamed, but it could be at the later stage. He may introduce this concept of Orav Kablin, and he added it to the Shulchan Aruch. And that would therefore explain Kosev B'Siddur. Tovkuf Lamed Gimel, there was no Siddur of the Alter Rebbe. It's 20, 30 years later. But it's not in the Siddur. So there is, you can see, I have copies of it. They found in the back of, in the binding of an old Sefer, and all the binders would pad the binding, they would put in Chometz, old papers. So they found in the binding of an old Sefer fragments of an early edition of the Alter Rebbe Siddur. It's early because, how do you know? Because you recognize that there's significant changes, which are not in they're different to the way they are in our Siddur. So it's an earlier edition. And later it's got there, say, the Pedina Ben, it's got there, Kiddush Shalosh de Golim. My hunch is that the Alter Rebbe was referring to not a Siddur Kipshute, for davening Toga and Togois. He's talking about like a rabbi's companion, a Siddur companion. It wasn't so unusual because the Moshul, there's a Sefer, what's it called, Sharet Zion. Sharet Zion has Seder Ticket Chatzos, you have the main Siddur, then you have a companion Siddur. Ken Zayin, the Alter Rebbe, when he says Hanusa Kosa B'Siddur, doesn't mean the full Siddur which you found in Samach Gimel, but referring to a kind of companion or manual which he had published earlier on. This is a challenging thing. And those who are into the history of the Alter Rebbe, Hanusa Kosa B'Siddur is a challenging line. Good. Not one more Hakdama, then I'll get Rab Kamel Lemaise. And that is, as I say, the Alter Rebbe was Mechadesh, the Orav Kablin. And I was thinking, after there was someone before the Alter Rebbe. So if you have access to the Encyclopedia Talmudis, volume Mem Zayin, in the entry of Mechiras Chometz, there you have a nispach, you have an addendum, a whole essay of the history of the Mechiras Chometz. This essay was written by Rav Zevin, Shlem Yosef Zevin. He wrote it and it was published in Hamoedim Kehalocha. But for whatever reason, the editors of Kerech Mem Zayin, Encyclopedia Talmudis, saw it fit to include that article of Rav Zevin. And there he describes how the history of the Mechiras Chometz arrangement and how this was introduced by the Alter Rebbe. The Orav Kablin was introduced by the Alter Rebbe. Fine. So now let's go now to a little bit Lemaise. I'm happy to share this paperwork. If someone wants, I can do it through Rav Kasimov, and perhaps you have already your own paperwork. There's several pieces of paperwork which you need in order to arrange your Mechiras Chometz. Interesting, I was just browsing the article of Rav Zevin. It was earlier more common that a person would sell their own Chometz without going through a Rabbonim, etc. And very often Rabbanim saw there were shilas. Didn't lie, sat too late, saying whatever. There's lots of shilas, and so it became more common the mechira kololis, going through a rov, and the rov does the sale for you. Bichlal, I think it's I mentioned before we started this year, I think it's a good thing that each rov bim koimer should do a mechiras chometz in person, meet with the people in person. Once a year, you meet with the balabos, you give him a few minutes attention if you can. It's a matter of schore betzira echet. I'm chutin with the Rav Ashkenazi. My niece married his son. So my nephew says that Tata zogt soll sein Pesach viermal a Jahr. Die Mama zogt einmal in 2 Jahr. The matter is schore betzidoi. So you meet with people and there's a moment of Hakoras Hatev. It's a leinsach Geschäft. Give them the time and it's kosher verdient. I'm apologizing by throwing in my Yiddish phrases in here and there, but Mestama der Elam versteht. Okay, so now this is what I prepare in advance. This is what is sent out to the community. You have these similar things in Pesach guides. You're going to distribute to people in your community in advance, ready Purim time, a piece of paper where they can sign, and they will empower the Rov to sell their chometz at the right time. And they'll sign this and put their address, business address. So you're giving them also, reminding them that chometz at their business location also has to be sold. We also have another couple of points here. One point is about timing. That people now tend to travel a lot for Yom Tov, and it's a challenge. Where do you sell the chometz? So I live in London, as you know. So if someone's traveling to America, where does he sell his chometz? If someone's traveling to Europe, traveling to Israel, traveling to Australia, so where do you sell the chometz? So if you're traveling, so the shaila is, for you it's ready Pesach, Osmana Isur, and your chometz is in a different time zone. So this is an old shaila, this Shuvas in Yom Tov. I'm sure many other struggle with this question. I believe there's also a word of the Rebbe, a lashon of Chucharit Lula. I don't have the lashon in front of me, but where does the Isur chometz go according to? According to the location of the chometz or the location of the bailim. And to solve this shaila, we sell the chometz at the easternmost point. If you're traveling from England to America, I'll tell you to sell it in England. If you're traveling from England to Europe or to Eretz Yisrael, I'll tell you to sell it in Europe or in Eretz Yisrael, and so on. So that's what I was doing for many years, and then became more and more people were asking, well, if I'm going to Eretz Yisrael, I won't find the Rav there. So as a result, I've started doing, this is a good few years, I do 2 mechiras. One mechira, just the last, after the Sof Zman Achila, before there's man Isra Hanoah, and in that hour, that's when I try to do mechira. I know some Rabbanim not so fussy. They don't mind making the mechira an hour earlier. I'm not sure exactly why. The guys are still eating their Cheerios and they've been ready sold it to the guy. But fine. But I prefer to do the mechira after the Sof Zman Achila, known as eating the chometz. But then for the people who are traveling eastwards, I do an earlier mechira, either the night before, the night of B'dikas Chometz, or earlier on in the morning, a couple of hours before the Zman HaIsur here, so that is the Chometz in Eretz Yisrael is sold before the Zman HaIsur in Eretz Yisrael. Just to throw in, it's interessant. There is a Isur Cheftza on Chometz, even Chometz Shel Nochri. Chometz Shel Nochri is also B'Hanor during Pesach. Novos, there's no consequence after Pesach. If Shulchan Aruch says you pass by a bakery, a goyish bakery, in the middle of Pesach, you're not allowed to consciously inhale the smell because you're not allowed to have hanor from chometz. Chometz shel nochri is also hanor by Pesach, but there's no consequence. So it's not so remote to say that I am in London. I have chometz in Eretz Yisrael. There it's Zman HaIsur, it becomes also I am still allowed to have chometz, It could go under the hefts. So to avoid this, we have here a note. At the bottom of our star, for those spending Pesach eastwards, e.g. in Eretz Israel, Chometz should be sold earlier. If intending to do so, please tick this box. So when I get these forms from Mechiras Chometz, I will sort out anything with the box ticked. I'll put it into a separate pile, and they will be for what I'd call Mechira Mukdemis, for the early sale. And this is something which you should bear in mind. As I say, I used to have small amount. I would send the details to a Rav in Eretz Yisrael, but Kashen Yisrabu HaKoinim Baruch Hashem. So I started doing 2 mechiras. It was quicker to do 2 mechiras than to keep on sending the stuff forward. Right. So that is the Mechiras Chometz. Now, when I started doing Mechiras Chometz, now about 40 years, for the first time, I asked Rabbi Marlo Olav Sholem to give me the paperwork to be able to do so, and he gave me the nusach which he was using, which I kind of use, retyped it, but basically the same thing, the nusach. And so this is a separate thing. So again, this first form is what I'm sending out to people to sign in their homes. We do actually, right over here, it's preferable for you to come personally to sign the main contract form, and it has my times when I'll be available in the office. And what's the mile? Because if they come in person, then they can do a Kabbalah's Kinyan. Kabbalah's Kinyan means, how am I able to act on your behalf? You've got whiskey in your closet. How am I selling your whiskey? So there needs to be some kind of exchange that your whiskey becomes under my control. And that is what we do a Kinyan Sudar, similar to the power of Kinyan Khalifin, that I give you something, and by you picking up my thing, then your thing becomes mine. That's how Khalifin barter works. So this is what the Kinyan Sudar is similar. So the Balabas comes to me, and he's got Chometz in his house. I give him my Sudar, my cloth, and then as a result, his goods, his Chometz goods, become under my control, and I'm able to sell them on his behalf. So this is where I have this form. They come in person. It's quite articulate or verbose, perhaps. All the different types of Chometz. Arak, cognac, liquor, vahadoime. If you want, I can make it bigger, or I can send it to you later for entertainment. Kolpodim, all different types of Chometz you could think of, and these are listed, and then people will then sign their name. Well, first of all, I want their address, and some people want to articulate where the Chometz is. Now, here's the difference between Chabad and others. I have a few local Litvaks who come, and he comes in with a list. I'm selling, a half a packet of noodles, which is worth about 35 pence. And I've got a mixer. They got a whole list, a detailed list of what they're selling. In Chabad, we don't go into all of those lists. Just they give us all the any Chometz at this address. But people still, and people want to articulate where they put the Chometz, and so that they'll tell me this cupboard, that cupboard, and I'm happy to listen to that and write it over, give them the time and write it over in my list. But more important is I have their address, and they sign their empowerment. They're giving me the Yipui Koyach that they sign it. That makes it legal. If they are going out of town, so then I will ask them, where are you leaving keys? And they'll tell me by a neighbor or whatever, or they'll tell me their address. He's going to Houston, Texas. Okay, give me the address in Houston, Texas, but I want there should be on the star that there is access. So if they're going elsewhere, the keys should be that we should mention where the keys are. Now, also why I'm asking them these details, where you keep the Chometz. Meanwhile, it's an opportunity. I have so many people who ask a question: can I? It's gone an Ayamagefe in the last 10 years. Praise. Yes.
Can I ask a simple question? This Chomer that I ask,
let me finish this, and I'll pause. Yeah. There's a craze called sourdough. My sourdough, and if you're going to not have the sourdough in the fridge for a week, so then is So therefore, they're asking, can I put my sourdough in a black bag in the corner of the fridge? Now, I'm just giving you one example, a common example. But often people say, can I have one shelf in the fridge or in the freezer? And that is the Chometz Hanimika. Now, the way it's described in Shulchan Aruch is if a goy leaves Chometz in your possession, even if you have no achrayas, you have to have Mechitza Shel Asorat Tfachim. That's not practical inside a fridge or a freezer to have a Mechitza Asorat Tfachim. And therefore, I'm asking them, if you can't, I don't allow you to sell a corner in the fridge or the freezer. If you want to keep your sourdough for after Pesach, perhaps you have a neighbor who's selling a whole fridge, and but then I want you to tell me, and in fridge at this and this location, my chometz in that and that fridge. So I'll ask them those details. Yes, now I'm ready to be mafsik. So saying Tanya said be'emsa sichanot, say skafje, middle of a ma'aser, a shvera zach. Yeah, what did you want to say?
This chumrah of writing your address where you're moving to, is this something that you do? I didn't find other rabbanim doing that.
Where I'm moving to? No, I don't.
No, not where I'm going for Pesach.
I don't know where you're going for Pesach. I want to know where the keys are.
I understand this concept of to know where to leave a key. I'm just asking because I never
look around. I didn't invent it. There are contemporaries for him about Mechiras Chometz. There's one from Rav Stern, one possibly in to Gabriel, but probably in Rav Stern's Sefer. But I've seen it around. Okay.
And writing of the
Alter Rebbe does say in the Nusach that Rishus b'yod lish ber hadelas.
Yeah.
So it's nish gefährlich. If you don't have those details, nish gefährlich. But yeah, go on.
I just asked you said,
one at a time.
I'm sorry.
You said in passing that we don't list all the food and all the pratim.
I can't hear.
You said in passing that in Chabad we don't list the pratim of exactly what you're selling.
Yes.
Is there any good reason for that? L'chayra makes the mechira a lot more of a real thing. That this is what I'm selling. It's not gahak like everything in the house. You don't know what it is. You don't know how much it's worth. It sounds much more of a harama if you don't have precise definitions.
Right. Yeah. You're going to make a list of all the different types of mashkas, and then how much is a quarter bottle of Jack Daniels, and how much is it's ein ladovasov. Because they can afford to do this because most Hamish Yidden, I'm not talking about Chassidisha, that's the kind of population I have in this area, they don't sell Chometz Bichlal. They don't sell Chometz Mamish. They only, Chashash, they're not really selling a lot. But if we are not makpid about that, and we are
I would say that
to start now in the star it says Achar Hamadido v'Hamishkol v'Haminyon. We're going to assess the price. It'll come to it. We have a method of how to price it. So you don't have to start patchkerai to making all that list. Someone wants to, isn't it? But it's certainly not a thing I've seen done in Chabad. Okay.
And I asked, I'm sorry, we write uvechol mokim shehu.
Yes.
That can be included as sourdough in someone else's refrigerator.
I think no. Let me just throw something to you. Where does the word star come from? What's the shorish of the word star? So I'll tell you, star comes from the lashon of shoiftim v'shoitrim. It's enforceable. A star has to be enforceable. There's an expression in Yiddish, Moshe Zuchmir. Ganz Welt. What does that mean? It's nonsense. If you have an address, you can go there and say this. You can identify that. I understand, but it means, literally without any guidance at all, I think is a nonsense. That's why I do ask them for the detail, for the address. Okay.
On that point, in Dini Kinyonim, in Kinyan Agav, if you're buying it, that does work even without specifying, and even if you don't know where it is.
If masking that the Kinyan might be workable, but the star is not going to be enforceable. And yeah, we have this bad balance. Mitzad echad, the Mechiras Chometz looks like a haroma, and we, as you said rightly, whoever ER is, yes, there is. We want to kind of be mechazik that it should be looking authentic, but yeah. So, all right.
Is this star enforceable in a secular court of law?
Yes.
What about
We'll come
What
to that.
about the Chometz balua b'keilim? How can you measure?
Let's leave the questions for after. Let's let the Rav
yeah.
continue, please.
Right. But thanks. I like to have a little bit of to and fro, but from deswegen. Let's move on. Right. So then this is here's in big writing, the same star which you saw before. It's in big writing. You can see here, as I said, arak, cognac, liquor, vahadoime, krekes, leker, torten, konditerske, v'chulo, all different types of archaic terms for chometz. And here they are appointing myself, as their agent to sell chometz, and they sign their name. They don't even have to date it, because we have kol echad ve'echad b'vonu alachosim, kol echad ve'echad b'yoimoy, chodesh ador oinisim da'hayshato, and they sign their name. So this is their hashor, and I can act on their behalf. Now, then we still have many rabbonim who don't do Mechiras chometz themselves. They have a clientele, but they don't have necessarily the time or whatever to deal with Mechiras chometz in Erev Pesach. So they come along with a whole pack of stories. Rabbi Goldberg, and he's sent out one of those papers, and he's been empowered. Now, can I sell Rabbi Goldberg's chometz or for Rabbi Goldberg's clients? So what I do is this. Again, I was makabel from elsewhere. I think from Rabbi Marlo, Harshor Rabboni, and that is that any rabbonim who come and selling on behalf of their community. So ani hachosim ba'mato abba hashor mit dayore ir Brighton vosvi let's say, and so they will. This is a few days before Pesach. They will sign such a document, and then they'll give me their pack of stories of their community, and then I've got a covenant that if anyone challenges me, how am I selling a property in Chometz in Brighton? Well, here they gave permission to the Rabbi of Brighton, and Rabbi of Brighton empowered me. I want to tell you another important point here. That when the Rabbi of Brighton there's Brighton in Australia, there's Brighton in Brooklyn, there's Brighton in England. So it's a name Shem Kololi. When the Rabbi of Brighton comes along to sell his chometz, to sell the chometz in his community, what about his own chometz? Because this is only empowering him on behalf of the people of his community. But where has he sold his own chometz? So usually, we have a one-to-one meeting, so I'll take down his details like anyone else, the Yechidim on this list, and then this is for his community. But man darf nicht vergessen, whilst you're selling the chometz for everyone else, don't forget to sell your own chometz. I'm sure it's happened that people have overlooked that. Right, now we're getting to the
other Lubavitcher Rabbanim don't do that. Rabbi Shapiro, for example, in Miami, doesn't do our Shor Rabbani. I just write v'chol elu shemachru ve'imkeru al yadi.
Okay, if he sees that that's enough, fine. I got this. I didn't invent this, and if he has, if he's had satisfied with that, that's fine. Fine. Okay. So Pesach is a couple of weeks from now, so we want to get ready for this. So one of the things you want to get is a trustworthy guy. Trustworthy in several levels. One of them is also that he's going to keep time. So last year, if you remember, Erev Pesach was on Shabbos, and for some reason I didn't use the regular guy, different guy, and comes the time which we had agreed. So I call him up. Oh, I'll be in an hour. Thank you very much. But this was Erev Pesach Shechal B'Shabbos. I could afford the hour. But if it were Chas V'Sholem, such a thing would happen Erev Pesach Mamish, I'd be in gefährliche Shtuch, as we say. So you have to have a guy who's trustworthy. He's going to be there on time. Zufil achochem, you don't want a guy who's a crook, because then he might take it the wrong way. He's a Ne'emon, Loshen's Yoda, Makira, whatever. And he understands Amashagas and Abyssal, and he understands that you're going to he'll understand what's going on. and he'll buy the chometz. He understands this is for a religious reason, want to sell it, and he'll buy it. Fine, and he's ready to lay out the money. Now, I know some of you are going to say, "But Rabbi so-and-so doesn't do this." I don't like to give the goy the money to buy it from me. I want the goy to come with his own money, and he should trust me. At the end of Pesach, I'll give him back. I'll buy it back for much more than what he paid. But some rabbonim, they get the janitor or whatever, and the janitor had noch nicht $100. So the Rav gives him a loan of $100, and then he buys it. Listen, I'm sure it's always gehalten halacha, but I prefer that it should be more authentic. Right. So one thing I need to negotiate with the goy, who I can trust, who will be available on time Erev Pesach to buy the chometz. Lahavdil, I need to also find an Orav Kabbalan. Important that the Orav Kabbalan is not one of your clients. He can't be guaranteeing the purchase or the sale of his own stuff. Let's explain. What is the Orav Kabbalan coming in here? Perhaps we should go back in history a little bit. Before the Alter Rebbe introduces Orav Kabbalan, there were two ways of selling chometz. One is that you sell the chometz in full price. I've got a box of whiskey worth 200 rubles. The guy gives 200 rubles and walks off with the whiskey. It's simple. But what happens if I have a whole brewery? The guy, first of all, can't walk off with it, and you won't find a guy to put down the money to buy a whole brewery. Was bring it on? The brewery is worth $100,000. The guy gave you $100. And for the rest, well, 999, whatever, of them, he owes you the money. Yeah, very nice. So then, what will happen if the guy doesn't come up with the money? I can just zusagen that most of your clients will say, if he doesn't give me the money, the whiskey stays in my cocktail cabinet. I ain't releasing the whiskey if he don't give me the money. If so, there was no Mechira. This is the problem which was facing the Alter Rebbe and the Goinim Shebedoirei, that there is a weakness. If you're going to sell the chometz with a first installment and the rest is owing, that owingness is a weakness on the whole Mechiras chometz. And therefore, the Alter Rebbe, to circumvent this, the Alter Rebbe says we're going to bring in a third party. I'm going to call him Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef signs a document that any money that the goy owes after Pesach, 3 days after Pesach, any monies, he is responsible. And the goy gives me this piece of paper on Erev Pesach. He gives me £100 and a star of Arvis that Rabbi Yosef has signed. And I say to the goy, you've paid me till the last penny. Namely, you've given me the £100 plus the promissory note, the Orav Kabbalan, and with this, I'm fully paid up. You don't owe me a penny. Now, I'm not going with theory, but I'll come back to the practical in a moment. In a theoretical, hypothetical, if the guy doesn't want to sell the chometz back, it'll come 3 days after Pesach. I'll go to Rabbi Yosef and I say, Rabbi Yosef, I need £100,000 to pay my clients. All their whiskey is sold, and you took responsibility. Rabbi Yosef said, no problem. Give me a day or two. Rabbi Yosef goes over to the goy and he says, Mr. Goy, you know this all this whiskey that you bought, and I guaranteed. I want to tell you, I did not guarantee out of the goodness of my heart. I didn't give you $100,000 of whiskey just at my expense. I guaranteed, but I expect you to pay me that money. So the guy says, Rabbi Joseph, I don't have that type of money. So Rabbi Yosef says to him, that's not a problem. You have whiskey for that type of money. So I'll take the whiskey as payment for what you owe me. So I said, okay, take the whiskey. So then Rabbi Yosef comes back to me and he says, Rabbi Dayan Raskin, you know, the whiskey, which is in that house, that's the payment for the sale, yeah? So now the whiskey has changed hands 3 times. It's owned, on Erev Pesach, it was sold to the guy, and then, this is all hypothetical, if the guy wants to hold on to it, and then the guy will give it as payment to Rabbi Yosef, and then Rabbi Yosef will give it as payment to me, and I'll give it back to the Balabatim. So really, it's fairly foolproof. The only risk is if the guy decides to make a whole booze up in a pub which was sold in Chometz. That's where the risk is. That remains in any mechira, but fine. So now we're coming back. We got the order of Kabbalah and the order of Kabbalah. So we have to halt cop. Who does the order of Kabbalah owe? Who is he owing? He owes me. Yeah. So when I make the kinyan with the order of Kabbalah, halt cop. So now he signs the paper, but then all right. So then I give the order of Kabbalah my sudar, my cloth, and then he is mischayev to me. That's the exchange. Yeah, I give him the order, the sudar, and he becomes mechuyev to me. He signs the zettel. We'll come up the zettel in a moment. The Arvis document. And as I said, he's not one of my clients, and he doesn't have to be a Größer Gewir, although it's, I think in Crown Heights is vielleicht sein the Minig, the Größer Gewir used the Arab Calvin, yeah? It's, you know, the stam it's a plastatus Sach, der Arab Calvin, yeah? Had die Millionen. Upon him, but the Alter Rebbe says, Arab Calvin doesn't have to be a millionaire. Could be a bocher. He says, you have a bocher at home, a Bal Mitzvah. The Alter Rebbe is like Bal Mitzvah. If he's a bar mitzvah bocher, he can also be your Arav Kablan. Even if he doesn't have any of his own property, he can also be Arav Kablan. And here we have the nusach of the Arav Kablan. Yeah. So here is interesting. There was a time I had I was selling my chometz to my next door neighbor, a goiter, Marcio Gomez. But then there's a shaila. We have to exchange, shake hands. How do we do shake hands? So one time I used a glove, but then I saw in Rabbi Chosid that even with a glove you don't give a hand to Isha. So I changed the talich that my wife would change hands. I don't know the lomdas whether it's right or wrong, but I prefer to just use a man rather than yeah. And this is the star, which is any money that the Eina Yehudi owes Rabbi Raskin. And which has been bought if for 3 days after Pesach, then I take responsibility for that money. What's the cheshbon of 3 days after Pesach? Theoretically, the goy can still sell the chometz to Jewish clientele, Jewish customers. He can sell during Pesach to goyim, but after Pesach, he has a chance to sell it off. That makes it a little bit more authentic. And this, interestingly, I don't know the reason. The Alter Rebbe says to give it to the goy should have this a little bit before this man, not mamish al asar. You give him the paper and he gives it back to you. That's probably more of a charade. So give it in advance. So usually I do it the night before. I pop it through their letterbox, but I don't know how sometimes it's not practical if the guy is in a different area.
Either they're in English or in Hebrew.
Everything's in Hebrew. Everything's in Hebrew.
She understands.
Well,
You put it.
I translate. Yeah, Heinten took a Google Translate also. Yeah, but no, I translate. I read the star. I read it. I'm reading in Hebrew. I say it right into English. Yeah. All right. So now the mechira. We agree with the goy. We're going to meet on this and this date, the 1st of April. We're going to meet at, let's say, 10:30. We're going to meet.
Are you able to show the nusach that the Arav Kablan signs?
This is the nusach of Arav Kablan. Yes, Shar Arav Kablan. Is that good?
I just need to sign.
You're welcome to.
Does he sign it?
Rabbi Yosef will sign his name here.
In the Mechiras that I've seen, the star is benusach beloshen over that he received the money already, even though he didn't yet receive it. That always disturbed me.
No. Which star are you talking about? The main star or the Arav Kablan?
The Arav Kablan.
What do you mean he's received? Which money has he received? How does the Arav received? I don't know what you're talking about.
No, the goy received from the Arav Kablan.
He doesn't. No? The Arav Kablan doesn't give him money. Takes his chachrayas.
It's the other way around. There's something there with the. I'm trying to remember which.
More likely, you're talking about the main star. All right, actually, yeah. This is what I was in Kabul, and so this is what I used. Fine. Yeah. So we agree a time and place where we're going to meet, and it should be ample time before the deadline. so that the mechira is going to be can be effective. Too late is too bad. The goy, I tell him two things. He should prepare a cloth of some sort. Can be a handkerchief. It can be a garment, sweater. It can be a pen, but something of his which I will be able to pick up to be able to do the Kenyan Suda, the Kenyan exchange, and also a bit of money. So I published this about 30 years ago, and I wrote €10. And Rabbi Pevsner, when he saw this, he burst out laughing. The amount of chometz he was selling, €10, a bit of a joke. Yeah, I'll tell you why it's a joke. Because possibly that was also the Sibir from Zain laughing. That one tries that for each of your clients there should be two prutas. On behalf of each of your client, you're doing two transactions. You're doing a schiris of the mekaymis, and you're doing a mechira of the goods, two separate things. And then they're very articulate, two separate things. And the least for a Kenyan has to be a shava pruta. So that to be a pruta. So we try to have that the goy's purchase the amount which he puts down should be a pruta for each two prutas per client. And so you have to work that out. And unfortunately, the price of silver has been going up significantly of late. And as a result, the shava pruta, a nickel, I think, is less than a shava pruta, just under. A dime is a shava pruta, but a nickel is just under a shava pruta. I saw recently, in England, we have pennies. 5 pence was just on the margin of a shava pruta. And so work it out that depending how many clients you have, but that should be reflected in the down payment which the goy gives. I give the goy the signed document of the Or of Kablan, as I have here the Lashon Alter Rebbe, Sho Oishtayim Koidem Mechiras Chometz. So I give it to him in advance. And then we're going to now explain what is the sale, and what is chometz, and what's tarevas chometz, and what's chashash chometz. And by the end of it, the goy knows the word chometz very well. We tell him that this is my chometz, and all of those who have signed the empowering documents. And there are chometz which are in designated places, and there are places which are not designated. Let me digress for a moment. I once had a shaila. Someone called me up in the middle of Chalamed. He was sitting back on his sofa, and he looked up on top of the brake front, and he sees a bottle of Smirnoff, a huge bottle which couldn't fit inside any of the closets. And he said, "What's tut me da?" So if you had written B'chol Mokim Shehu, so on top of the brake front is also closed. Yeah, B'chol Mokim Shema. That's why he had B'chol Mokim Shehu by each client. Yeah, so mechira, we say there's bits and pieces which have no value, and they're also included in the mechira, and that the goy has got access, he has permission to access the locations of the chometz. Point 6 is that the prices, the value, will be according to wholesale price or according to the valuation of 3 knowledgeable people. It's number 7, that it's an absolute sale, and it will be recognized in the civil courts, the civil law, and that the Kenyan number 8 is that it's going to be through your giving money plus the note of the Or of Kablan. We also tell him that you're going to make profit out of this business, and that's obviously an incentive that they should spend the half hour plus travel time with you on Erev Pesach, and there's a detail of how much in the star. There's a detail of how much money is deducted for his effort, or added to his effort because of his effort. And also he's doing several kinyonim. There are several vehicles of contract, and if one doesn't work, the other one should work. They're not interdependent. They are independent of one another. And then we say to the guy that there may be things which are not really genuine in the sale, and so that shouldn't invalidate the rest. The fact that there are going to be details which are invalid shouldn't be a drawback, an obstacle to the validity of the rest of the sale. Actually, this list of points was written by the late Rav Moshe Landau of Shalom, that the goy should pay for the electricity of the fridges. Or in, let's say, buying a bakery, who pays for the electricity? And that also that the goy acquits the owner of responsibility for the functioning of the freezers. I'm not going to go into that detail because I haven't dealt with it properly. I mean, the obvious question, what would happen if there is a blackout and the food goes off? Does the guy have achrayas to pay for those foods which are in your kitchen, but you had a power cut and you didn't bother to fix it? Okay, we read the whole Nusach Hashtar, and then when we finished, we do a handshake. I think that's the translation of Tkias Kaf, and also the concept of Kinyan Agav. Just to explain something, when last night we had this discussion. There's Kinyan Chotzer and Kinyan Agav. These are two separate things. Kinyan Chotzer means that I own a premises, and then something goes into my premises, I can be koine the goods in my premises. That does not work with a goy, because Chotzer b'tam shlichus is Rabbi, and goy doesn't have shlichus, and therefore there's no Kinyan Chotzer with a goy. So don't talk about Kinyan Chotzer. There's a different thing that's called Kinyan Agav. The Mishnah in Kiddushin, that you cannot be koine metaltalin with kesef, but you can be koine karka with kesef. But then you can have what in English they call a job lot. You have in one lot which has got metaltalin and karka, and when you are koine the karka, the metaltalin are part of the lot, even if they're not in the same location. I can be selling you a swimming pool in the south of France and a cow in India, and it's in the same mechira. And agav, the swimming pool in the Riviera, you're koine the cow in India. And that's valid. Doesn't have to be in the same place. That's the Kinyan Agav. Nafkamina is Kinyan Agav works with the goy also. So when the goy pays, and he's not even buying land, he's doing a schiris. We're not knowing to sell the property. We sell the chometz, but the location is v'schiris. So the goy is paying a schiris for the mekaymes. So there's a contract on karka. Agav, the kinyan karka with kesef, his koine the metaltalin, whether they are there or elsewhere, but kinyan agav. In agav is the English translation for agav. By way of.
In conjunction with.
Okay. Weiter. So that's been these are the preliminary discussions. Now, so those are the numbered items was added by Rav Landau back to my own kitzer. The rabbi who's selling the mechometz will read the entire star, and that's a klal. Every star has to be read. A get from before it's given over has to be read. A ksube before it's given is read. A tnoim is read. A star has to be read before it's delivered. Similarly here, don't take it as read. We read through the whole star, and I read it straight into English, and we shake hands on the deal. I explain the concept of agav. The goy gives me half of the money, €5, with the Yorav Kabbalah document, and I tell the goy that the chometz here now becomes yours. The goy now gives me another €5 or whatever for the rental, and so there's been a kinyan kesef in addition to the kinyan kesef, which was the first payment. There's now a kinyan agav because he's now acquiring the rental, and he gets the goods, the chometz, through kinyan agav. At this point, the goy gives me his sweater, and I will lift it. And with this, we've done another kinyan. In addition to kinyan agav and kinyan kesef, we've done kinyan chalifin. I've taken his sweater, and my chometz becomes his, and all my clients. Then I sign this document, and then about giving keys. So here's a ma'aseh about giving keys. Amal people used to give the keys, and in the Welt, the missionagrische Welt, they come to the rabbi with the keys, and the rabbi has got a whole crate full of keys. And in Chabad, we're not knowing on this. And I had my sfekas. Should I give my key? Many years I was giving my own key, but if I give my key, how does that help my clients? I don't think that if Kenyan in Mechiras Maftech is a Kenyan is anias nafshi hitzalti, but I haven't haven't facilitated that Kenyan for anyone else. Anias daiti. So it's not like the other Kenyonim that I'm doing on behalf of everyone else. And so, depending on what I've eaten for breakfast that day, whether I'll do Kenyan with keys or not. More memakusha, venikimakusha, whatever. Yeah. So that's about the keys. We give the guy the star, the shoes. There was a time where I used to take all of the papers and seal them together, kaminik ayoshon, with sealing wax, with an imprint. Once it became too large to handle, so I've stopped doing that. But they keep all of the forms in what you call a file, one of these lever arch files that we call in America. So I keep all the stories there as much as I can. If you get more, then that also becomes impossible. It just becomes boxes of status. Someone actually, the one who is my Or of Kablan is a Geist of Orlando, Mesha's son. So he last year he commented, I have a couple of loose leaf binders. I should tie them together with a string and seal them together to make them into one unit. That's fine. If that's, I'm happy to go along with that. If that makes it more Mahuda to hate. And so what have we done? We've done Kinyan Kesef, and we've done, well, Kinyan Chotzer, as I said, is questionable. We've got Kinyan Star, we've got Khalifin with the Sudar, we have Kinyan Stumta, which is their Hatagarim. We've shaken hands on the deal. And then there's a beautiful Kinyan called Oidisa. Oidisa means I confess, I acknowledge, it's all yours. And that's when, at the end of this whole procedure, I say, now the Chometz is all yours, and that is a Kinyan Right, and then this is my Mechiras Chometz, Mechiras Klolis, and this is based upon the Alter Rebbe star, but it's much longer because it's including many more details because it's Shal Rabin. What is important though is when you do your star, make sure that you have your own details there. So there, in addition to what I'm selling on behalf of everyone, the Gam Chemtzi Shali, or Chometz Shali perhaps, in my own house, and in my office, in my wife's office, and yeah, there's one gentleman, Chassid Shid, who wants to do I use the term spitzy. You know, the Rabbeim didn't sell the chametz through the Rav, but they sold it to the Rav. So, so he comes, he wants me to buy his chametz. I'm not interested in buying more chametz for everyone. When he came as a Chassidish Geman, so every year I do him the favor, I buy his chometz. So then when I sell the chometz, so I also gam chemsi shali in this address. But otherwise, people come to me with a cup. They want to be spitzy. So it's a whole business in Mechiras mit Or of Kablan. Yeah, fine. Yeah, and so I go through this whole star, and you can see towards the end of the star, Reshus beyode. Where is it? Where is it? So somewhere that you have the right to get this translated.
In the middle. Reshus beyod limker.
No, not limker. I'm talking about getting the star translated.
Oh.
Agreement. No, it's the next piece. Reshus nasuna lahati ksav ze beloshon hamedino. Be'ezer boke mishpat kfi chuki hamedino. L'shalom ha'mechosim ha'misyachlim hazeh. Liyosh toikef ksav ze ketoikef contract. Hanasa kinimusa chuki hamedino for the schiris and for the sale. So whether as it is it implementable in a recognized in the civil court? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but she certainly has the rights to upgrade it into or downgrade it into a shtar which will be recognized by Chuki HaMedina. So that's basically the Mechiras Chometz, right? And at the end, the guy, I give him the whole pack of shtaros, and usually he says, "Rabbi, can I leave it in your office?" That's okay. I put it in the corner of the office. And by the way, my office doesn't have a lock, so he's welcome to come into the office anytime. By the way, it's good for Yichud Shalos also. My office doesn't have a lock. It's in the building. Anyone can come in anytime, talking Sidus. I don't keep anything with Sidus, I keep somewhere else. Fine. What else? At the end of Yom Tov. At the end of the Yom Tov, who buys back the Chometz? So die was gedenken at the end, in the middle of the Rebbe's Verbringen, of Achensel Pesach, Zalman Shimon would get up from his place by the Shvil, and he would make his way out to buy back the Chometz. But really, the Rav is not the one who has to buy back the Chometz. It's the Arav Kablan. He's the guy who's in trouble. So the Arav Kablan buys back the Chometz, but I make sure to be there. Why? It's my achrayas to see that it's done properly. Also, the reason why I don't like to buy the Chometz back myself is in the middle of Farbrengen, and if I'm going to deal with the Chias Chometz by Dayan, I have to say Baruch HaMavdil. Say Baruch HaMavdil, then I cannot say Al Yalla B'Yovei B'Yein Chagamatzis in benching. So I'm happy to, Geisef is happy to say Baruch HaMavdil, and he does the buying back, and I just mashgiach. Right now, he buys back the Chometz, and as I say, it's the guy gets a nice profit for it. We also tell the guy, and this is one of the people, one very common question. But if I'm going to a different time zone, you're going to buy it back for me, and I'm going to America. If you go back to it's still going to be Pesach for me when you buy it back. So relax. Number one, L'tkudish datich v'lo la'avse. I'm your shliach for your benefit. I cannot ruin your stuff. So I cannot buy Chometz when you're ready. In addition, Rav de Milsa, we tell the guy that I have clients, we have clients who are in a different time zone, and so their Chometz is not bought back from yourself until they are ready to accept it. Now, one more thing is, they have these nervous calls on Motzei Pesach. Are we allowed to get the Chometz bought back? You can buy it, yeah? Now, let me tell you the following. There's the Issur of Gzela and there's the Issur of Eshek. Gzela means when you take something with no intent to pay back. Eshek means I come into your house and I like your hat. I like your hat. I take your hat and put down $50. I'm taking your hat. Das is Eshek. It's Issur Deraisa with a Yid. With a Goy, it's not. There's no Issur Eshek. Therefore, if I go and take the Cheerios from the cupboard, from the closet, it's still the guys. I have every intention of sorting out financially. That comes under Oishik, not under Gezela. If I've had occasion that I come back to buy the Chometz, buy back the Chometz, and the guy ain't there. He's out for the evening. So do I start making a call, say, I don't need the Chometz yet? We'll sort it out. No one's going to be upset about it. Okay. I hope you enjoyed that. And anyone who's ready to put in the time, it's not a huge it's not a huge difficult thing to manage. It's something which you can das machen. If you are a Rav who's actually active in paskening shalos from the community, I would encourage you to consider doing Mechiras Chometz yourself. But take the time to learn through the material, as I said before, the Timatov Memches, and look at the Sifrei Achronim, Malakatim, etc. And it's something which your community will appreciate. And Bez Hashem should be Meir Eir Shneim Hashem. Good.
Why does the Arav Kablan buy back the Chometz and not the Rav? So aren't you buying it back for the people so they can use it? As in not buying back, you're buying the Chometz for the people that gave you the star straw to buy it. Why is it Arav Kablan? Why is it only financial story?
Yeah. The answer is that I'm nothing to do with it. I've walked away from it. Erev Pesach, I've got nothing to do with it. Ich bin a freier Vogel. He's the guy in Stuch. If the people they come, I've sold it. It's the guys. He is the guy in the driving seat now. So he should be buying.
So how do the people get back the thing if it all belongs now to our common? He's the only financial person involved.
He buys it back on their behalf.
There was a mice in Eretz Yisrael in Yerushalayim, a Litvish community that rented a space, and everyone brought all their pots and pans and chametz and everything into that place, locked it in there, closed it, gave the key to the guy. It's yours. The second day, the first day Yontif, in the middle of the day, the guy comes with a moving truck, and took everything that was there.
Yeah. And
there was no one to run after.
yeah. That's why you try to find a guy who's nicht as a, is that a guy Nemo? Nicht as a, the other story, I mean, that's showing. I think it's also good to discuss this in Shiurim, to explain to the Tzibur how this is an authentic Mechira. And so there's a guy who comes and he bought the local pub, whatever, the Kretschmer. And so he calls over his Chaverim, Chevre, I own the Kretschmer. Come, we're going to have a Verbringen tonight. And Nacht noch a Nacht. And the Baal Kretschmer was it sein. So going to bleiben. So he comes to the Rav with the Rav calls over the guy and he says, I have a very, very important mission in a different town. And really, it's such a sensitive thing. I don't trust anyone but you. I'm ready to pay you your travel expenses. I'll pay you for a nice hotel over there. Here, I'm giving you the money. Travel immediately. It's mamish urgent to deliver this package to 2 days journey away. And he gives you the money and skartuch and everything. And the guy does it. And that was and they all live happily ever after. Yeah. All right. Paul Tov.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ich vergessen den Nasi. Yeah.
Thank you.
Rabbi, one quick question.
Go on.
What does the Rav say about selling chametz for people who didn't ask you to sell chametz? It's valuable. It's worthless. It's cute. It's nice. We should do it. We shouldn't do it for people either because you're afraid they're going to forget or because whatever they're still.
I mean, if they,
working on their
I find it very creative. But I know that Remorche Forkash, I believe, has taken a list from the telephone book from Seattle, all Jewish names, and put them into the Mechiras Chometz.
I heard that Rabbi Lazar also takes his whole list of his mailing list and he puts it in.
Okay, well, at least them, he has some kind of probably financial contact with them also, but just out of a telephone list.
I do that. I mean, just to clarify, I do that every year. And one year, a frum guy, he pushed forgot to sell his chametz, and then he wanted to be semechad. I mean, I don't know.
Wait a minute, but he and other years he goes and sells to another rabbi.
No,
yes, but he usually sells with another rub, but he happens to be in our list, so I print out my whole list.
Wow,
he's a frum guy. I put it in my thing. He never asked me. He never sold it, through me. I don't do the actual mechira. I passed it on to someone else's headache. But I just print out my whole mailing list, and then he realized, Erev Pesach, oops, I forgot.
I believe that in Chicago there's going to be lots of fights with goyim, who got there first. All right, lo yazik.
Also, in the Star Mechira, it also says that anybody that sold in earlier years, no, or is it only by the Lubavitch?
No, that's a Veltischer thing. That the people who are
the
regular clientele, that if they missed this year, then they should be included. That's emes, yeah. But if they're not regular clientele, some out of his telephone book, a bisschen schwacher. But
what happens if it's someone that sold you that put it in the mail and you got it 2 hours after?
This is Tmidim Kisidron. Every year we get late coming starters, but that's stipulated in the star. That let me just scroll up. We do say that all the nyoros had mitzurafes and the ones shelo higiu Dayan or shenevdu me'elo shenimsur hasha'asim balpeh. So that we do include late coming stories also. Yeah.
And it says even if that means they wanted to give it to me.
Rabbi,
which you mentioned before about. Yeah. All right.
So based on this, every frum guy who sells, but 1 year he forgot is okay.
Yeah.
What about the chametz in a car in the public way, not in the house?
If it's in the same address or not?
Not the same address.
Then you have to stipulate where the car is. People sell their car. They have chametz in the car. I asked them where's the car parked. They asked them what's the registration, model, color, and where it's located. Yeah, and if they don't, I'll tell them just check it. If you have chametz in the car, how much is it? $5.
Yes, because in some places like Mexico, for example, that
Yeah.
I'm on, the where you park the car in the street is not your property.
Yeah, but your car is your property.
Yes, the car is your property. That's why you need to sell Chometz.
If you have
Not
car seats in
speculation
your
to
car,
the-
it's
If people want to include the car, if they're traveling, if they're going to use the car, tell them you can't sell the car. You have to bring Chometz in the car. If they traveling, they're just leaving the car. Tell me the model, the color, the registration of the car, and where it's parked, and then that I'll include in the Mechira. Yeah, I should have said that
Right.
earlier.
You mentioned about the mashka. So what happens if you find in your drawer a bag of
Wafers.
pretzels? Pretzels.
Honest. Yeah.
Is that included the b'chol mokim sure you need to burn it?
Yes. You don't have to burn it.
So you don't, and if you find in your suitcase, like in your like you didn't think that it's there, but you wrote the b'chol mokim sure.
Yeah.
You also don't have to burn it.
Correct.
So this whole concept is someone
the
who
whole
sold
drama. I
Chometz.
found Chometz and Pesach with the fire, with the whole celebration.
Exactly. Doesn't, so you don't have to do that. So basically,
really,
you don't have to do.
You don't have to do it. Yeah. Because it's
Oh,
included.
Interesting.
So when you read Shulchan Aruch, you read was it Simon Tov Mem Hey, the Chometz Hanimsa B'Moyed, all the drama, the shilas. That's talking about with no mechira. What is a mechira? This is a fellow. Yeah, I'll tell you the truth is that before I realized this, I told the fellow to pour out the Smirnoff, but I hope he forgives me.
No, because I know that there's a Rabbanim Paskin that you have to burn it.
Okay.
That's I'm saying this is the first time hearing this.
Come back to them and ask them why is it not included in the mechira. Yeah. All right.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to having you in Chicago.
Yeah, Bezos Hashem. Yeah. Pesach Tzeit, yeah.
Share the nusach of the Arav Kamlan.
I can share all of these documents. Now, if you want me to send you anything, I'll tell you my email address and then tell me what you want, and I'll send you those documents. My email address is Dayan, Dayan, or in Israel it's Strudel, Dayan at Lubavitch UK, no dot there, LubavitchUK.com. And I'll be happy to send you the documents that you are asking for. And I hope you have a facility to update them, to change the dates and the names, etc. on Word. Yeah, Carl.